The year that I was in 5th grade, our teacher, she gave us a label. She gave us a label. Each one of us kids had a label, and we had 3 choices. There were 3 different types that we could be. And I don't know if you've ever put like a sticker on a window, a mirror. Your mom said not do it, but you did it. And then you try to scrape it off, and you can't get it off. There's all this like sticky residue stuff that you can't get rid of, it doesn't seem like. And so this teacher, she would give us these labels. And how it would work is we would sit down, she'd be like, class, sit down. So we'd all sit down. And she would start calling row. She would call row A to Z. Now, for me, that took a long time because I was a W. I never got the front of the line. And so she'd start A, B, C. Charlie, are you here? Charlie would be like, here, I'm here. And she'd be like, okay, Charlie's here. Checkbook. E, F, Frank, are you here? And Frank would be like, because he's startled because he's in his lunchbox, pulling out his M&Ms his mama sent him. And so Frank is like, brought my lunch, because Frank's mama got up in the morning and she made his lunch. And she sent him like fruit roll-ups and those little miniature bags of chips and Capri Suns and like little notes that says, I love you, have a good day. So Frank, he said, brought my lunch. And then she keep going. G, H, I, all the way to W, where I was at. I was a W. So I got to wait through the whole roll call every single morning for her to get to my name. And then she would get to my name and she'd be like, Barbara White. And instead of getting to say here, I had to say free. I said free because my family didn't pay for our lunches. We got free lunches. So if you got free lunches, she gave you the label of free. So for a whole year, every single morning, I anticipated roll call, and I had to endure every single kid calling their name until they got to me, so that I could tell the whole classroom that I was poor. I was poor. So instead of my name saying I'm here, I am a kid and I am ready to learn and I am here, I got to say, I'm poor Barbara, because my family got free lunches. And the truth is, probably most of the kids in my class did get free lunches. But I didn't realize that because I was too busy being embarrassed about the label that the teacher had given me. And so that's started when I was in 5th grade, and it followed me. It followed me into adulthood. It followed me where I didn't think that I fit in with certain groups, that I didn't deserve certain things, that I wasn't worthy of things, that I wasn't good as other people because I was poor. My name was associated with poor, just a little lower class. And so the label that she gave me as a 5th grader left an impression right on my little heart. But as fate would have it, that same time period, I fell and I hurt myself. I hurt myself so bad that I had to spend 10 days in hospital and I had to have a surgery. Now granted, I was showing out. I was showing out to my grandma, and I fell and I hurt myself. And you know what they say, after pride comes the fall, and it does. So here I am in the hospital. I'm 10 years old. I'm not even used to my parents taking me to the doctor. So this is new to me. I'm in the hospital. I'm hurting. I'm sick. I don't feel good. And this guy, every day, coming into my room. I didn't know why he was there. I didn't know who he was. He could have been Jack the Ripper. I don't know. What I did know, though, was that he was very, very kind. He was so kind to me. And he would come in and he would talk to me, and he would bring little things from the gift shop. And he validated the fact that I was a kid and that I was hurting and that I deserved to be taken care of. But apparently, from what I hear, I wasn't a good patient. I was cranky, I was hateful, and I didn't want to do what the nurses wanted me to do. See, here he probably got chosen because he was the man, and they're like, we're not taking care of her anymore. And so one day, after apparently I was not nice, he says to the nurse, you going out to the nurse's station? I'll talk to her. So the nurse is like, okay. She scurries out. And Harold sits down. And I remember this. And he said, hon, I know that you hurt. I know that you're sick. And I know that you feel bad. But that's no reason to treat the nurses like that. They're just trying to help you. They're not here to hurt you. They're not here to make things worse. They just want you to get better. And as a 10-year-old girl, that made a huge impression on me. It made an impression on me because not only had Harold talked to me in that tone of kindness, he hadn't made me feel like a terrible person. He had treated me with kindness and with dignity. And then he had also treated the nurse with kindness and dignity. He had treated both of us with kindness and dignity. And what I learned that day was that everybody on every side deserves kindness and dignity. And what Harold did was so important because Harold gave me a new label. He gave me a new label that said, you are worthy. You are worth getting better. You are worth somebody taking care of you. And I put that little label on that sticky stuff that I had tried to get off from my teacher, but it wouldn't go away. I put that label Harold gave me right there and covered it up. And I was 10 years old, and I remember thinking, someday I'm going to find this man when I grow up. I'm going to find him, and I'm going to thank him. And that was a 10-year-old girl. I grew up and I became a nurse. Imagine that. I'm a nurse. And I had the honor of working in a residential juvenile treatment center. I was a nurse there. And I say that it was an honor because these kids are so smart. They're so smart. They're so creative. And they are so cool. These kids are cool. And what has happened to these kids is at a very young age, they have been given a label that says, you're no good, you're worthless, by their parents. Their parents who abused them their whole lives. By their parents and their family members who's raped them for years, every day, giving them that label of worthless. By the school system, who doesn't recognize when that kid comes into the classroom and he's naughty and he's getting into trouble, that he is crying for help, because school is the safe place. It should be the safe place. And so when they get to school, they act out and they're naughty. And these kids have this label that they're bad. They can't be in the classroom. So they send them home. They send them right back to where they're being abused. Because they've been bad in the classroom, you're going back home where you're going to be abused. That's what you get. Should have been good. And so I was working here with these kids, and they did cry out for help. They did cry out. And I don't know if if you could imagine being a small child. Imagine my kids were 7 when they came. Some of them were 7. They would come from thousands of miles away. And can you imagine being a 7-year-old child every week, every month, every several days? Imagine yourself sitting on the edge of somebody's couch. It's a stranger's couch. You've been there for maybe a week or something, but you're sitting on the end of their couch. And on the other end of the couch is your trash bag. And in that trash bag is all your worldly possessions. That's all you got. That's what's in that trash bag. And that's what you carry from house to house to house. Because those are your worldly possessions. And you do this your whole childhood. Some stranger's couch, your bag of trash. And you start associating yourself with being trash, because that is the only constant that you have in your life, is this black trash bag. And that is your security. It's who you are, and it's who you start seeing yourself as a piece of trash. And you are not worth any more than that trash bag that you travel with. While I was at that facility, I found that I love to paint with the kids. We painted a lot. We would paint the walls. We would paint the windows, knowing we would get in trouble. And we did. I got called on the floor I don't know how many times for painting. And I had to go back and paint the walls back regular color. But I didn't care. I didn't care. And one little girl told me one time, she said, "Nurse Barbara, this is the most fun I have ever had in my whole life." And I'm thinking, I'll repaint that wall every day if I have to. But one day, that same little girl, she said, "Nurse Barbara, did you take art lessons? Because, you know, this is not something that these kids will get to look forward to, is having art lessons." And I thought about it. And I said, you know, it's not so much that I took art lessons. It's that my dad was proud of my artwork. He was proud of my artwork. And he would tell me he was proud of my artwork. And he would show people my artwork. And so he gave me this label of being an artist. And so since I had been given this label of being an artist, I wanted to live up to that. That's what I wanted to live up to. And so I tried. I practiced. I painted. I showed him all my good stuff because I knew he was going to say something nice about it. And that made my heart happy. And so I worked really, really hard towards that. While I was there at the facility also, one evening, it was late. I'm not a late person. I had already been there for almost 13 hours. And I had an hour and a half drive home. And then I knew I'd have an hour and a half drive back in the morning. I had missed something. I don't even know what it was, but it had something to do with Aubrey. And I missed that. And it made me sad. And I'm on the unit with the boys, the older boys. And they're just rowdy. You know, you got 25 boys that are 15 to 18 in a little room. And they're rowdy. They are rowdy. But we're short-staffed. We can't leave because it's going to be dangerous. We got to stay there and make sure those kids are safe. And so I'm on this this unit with these boys, and they're acting up, and I'm wanting to go home. And I get aggravated. And I said, I just want to go home. I want to go home. And as soon as I said it, I regretted it. I wished I could have put it back in my mouth. Because one of my little boys, who was bigger than me, I could see the change on his face. It was just, and he said, "You know what, Nurse Barbara? I want to go home too." And it totally broke my heart. It broke my heart because I knew this was his home. He wasn't going somewhere else. this was his address. This is where he lived. And in a month or 2 months, he would be sitting on the end of that couch with his little black trash bag, with his worldly possessions, and he would be going somewhere else. And it wasn't his home. It wasn't his home. And he knew that. He knew that. He'd been in the system for years. Hadn't had a home. I did. And so all the way home, I felt terrible. All the way home. Thought about it. All night long, thought about it. Hour and a half back to work the next morning, thought about it. So the first thing I did was I went to that boy's unit. They hadn't even had breakfast yet. And I pulled him to the side. And I said, you know what? I want to apologize to you. I should have never said that last night. Because I know you want to go home. That was so wrong of me. And then I said, but you know what? And I meant it. I said, you know what? Someday, you are going to go home. And what's cool about that is that it's going to be a home that you built. And it's going to be your kids and your wife, the family that you built. It's not going to be somebody else's, it's yours. And I know you're going to do that. And I know you're going to be successful at it. And I know you're going to have a good family and a good home and a good life. And you're going to break this cycle with your kids because you're a good person. And because I know that you know how important that family is. And I know that you know how important having that home is. And I know that you know how important it is to have that person in your life that you didn't have. And you are going to do that. He hugged me. And he said, thank you, Nurse Barbara. And the thing was like, I didn't give him anything. I didn't give him a home. I wish I could have. I'd like to take him home with me. I didn't give him any of that. I didn't give him a family. All that I gave him was a new label, just to stick on top of that label he already had, that said, you're going to do this. You're worthy and you can do this. Well, I was at the facility still. I like to go to the classroom because I love those kids. They're naughty. They are naughty kids. But those kids are smart. And they're naughty because they know what gets them out of class. And so you would go down there, walk in the classroom. You may have a kid in the ceiling tiles. You may have a kid that's turned all the files over. And the teacher's, she's mad. She's standing in the corner saying, tag him. But I found out about these kids. A lot of these kids, they had learning disabilities. They had ADHD. And there's a little unknown fact, or known, Nurse Barbara has a little bit of ADHD herself. Nurse Barbara knows what it's like to be in that classroom and not have a clue what's going on and wondering why everybody else knows what's going on and wondering why they're getting A's on their test and why she's the only one getting in trouble. Because apparently those instructions were not given to me or I would have known. And so these kids, I started pulling them aside and I would tell them, you know what? Nurse Barbara, she has ADHD too. And she really has a hard time in school. She did. Nurse Barbara's been going to college for 30 years. Yeah, for a 2-year degree. And I'll say, but you know what? Because their little ears would perk up. Because in their mind, they think we're smart. And we're just like, the little ears would pick up. I said, kids with ADHD are superheroes. Nobody's told them that before. But it's true. And I'll say, you know, kids with ADHD, they should be wearing little superhero outfits because you're a superhero. Kids with ADHD are really smart. You guys are super smart. You guys make the world turn. It's you guys. And I'll say, I know you don't get good grades, but so you see those kids sitting in those classrooms in those chairs, minding, doing what they're supposed to be doing? Those kids are not the ones that's going to change the world. It's you. You are the one that has the courage. You are the one that has the creativity, and you are so smart. You're going to be the one changing the world, not them. And then I'll get a little deeper, and I'll say, did you know, because it's statistics, I think it's real. It is real. I'll say, you know what? A kid who has ADHD is 300 times more likely when they grow up to have their own business than the kid that's sitting there in their desk being good. I remember the kids in my classroom that were always in the principal's office. They all have a successful business. And these kids, you could see their back perk up. You see them stand up just a little straighter. These kids look like they had scoliosis. All of a sudden their back is just a little taller because nobody has ever gave them that label. Because these same kids that could be a business owner, if they don't have that right label, they're almost just as likely to end up in the jail system. That's why it's important to give them that label. Because we have a big part in how they turn out by telling them who they are when they're little. So I was at my friend's. I was talking to my friend, worked at the hospital. And our conversation went something like this. It said, Charlie, you don't happen to know a guy from the hospital named Harold, do you? And he said, I do. He said, I do know a guy named Harold, but he's retired now. And I said, because as a 10-year-old child, he had made such a big impression, I remembered his name. And so I told Charlie the whole story. And a few minutes later, Charlie messages me and he says, watch your phone, you're fixing to get a phone call. Sure enough, I did. After 30 years, on the end of the phone was Harold. And on my 40th birthday, Harold showed up at my front door with roses. And when I opened my business, Harold showed up. When Harold was sick, I went and got him at the hospital. And when Harold's wife died, it was my turn to show up with roses and to stand by his side. And the day that I did my last clinicals at the very hospital that I had met Harold at, he showed up and he gave me his retired badge. And he told me, you're going to do good. And he gave me this new label. And this label said, everybody deserves kindness. You deserve kindness. The people you take care of deserves kindness. The people you work with, they deserve kindness. And that is something as a nurse that I will carry the rest of my life, is that Harold taught me. The only thing that connected me to Harold was his kindness. His kindness that he's shown a small child. And I knew how important that label was, because that label covered up that label that the teacher had given me. And even though she had made me question my self-worth, a stranger I didn't even know was able to cover that up and to change my life. Every single kid gets a label. They get a label. They're not born with it. We give it to them. They come with a label. And most of these children, they will live up to that label. The ones that we give them is what they will live up to, whether it is kindness or whether it is failure. And I hope that just giving this young man a label that says you're going to be a good dad, and you're going to be a good husband and a good homemaker, is just enough to break that cycle. Just enough to give him that. And I hope the little girl that wanted to go about the artwork, I hope I gave her a label that just gave her just enough that she wants to live up to be an artist. Just telling her that she can. All it takes for each child is to have one Harold. They just need one Harold in their life. That one person who's willing to give them a different label. Because a child will grow towards the attention that is given to them. It's just like the sunshine. And it is our responsibility to give these broken children a reason to thrive. Because whatever label we give them will become the type of adult that they'll grow into. And will become the givers of labels to the next generation. And we can collectively change the course of history and our future society by something as small and simple as giving each child a positive label to live by. Give them another label.